Howdy herd, and hello everybody else. My name is Sera Proto, and I've come from space with videos for your face. If you saw the last Iceberg video, you're probably thinking, what the hell are you doing? You just made one. Don't you ever sleep? And the answer is yes, I did make one recently, and you can find the link to that one below the video in the description. It's also about furries, and the other answer is no, I don't sleep. Or at least I don't sleep very well. The last Iceberg was about the furry fandom in general, and used another person's iceberg to explain it, which is pretty normal for these kinds of videos. It's why they're called Iceberg explained videos, and not just iceberg videos. I didn't plan to make this iceberg at first. I was going to make a list of fun terminology for people in the fandom, and then I realized just how long the potential list of terminology is. So rather than just a long list of terminology with just, me saying what it is and then defining it, I think it would be more fun and potentially horrifying if we explored it as an iceberg. For those of you new to this, an iceberg is like a tier list video, but we start with the most common knowledge and we work our way down to the lesser known, weird, or darker knowledge. I created this iceberg all by myself, as well as I edited the video and wrote it. I don't have an editor. So if you appreciate the work, I'd appreciate a like. And remember, you don't have to watch this one in one sitting. Save it to your watch later and watch it when you feel like it. So some of these terms are going to vary in usefulness. Some of them are from the old fandom, some are made up, many of these might not be used at all, some might not be furry only at all, and are used by everyone including furries, and some probably didn't exist before and were made up as a goof. So some of these might not be used so much anymore. But as we go deeper into the berg, we will get to much darker and more adult subjects, so if you're uncomfortable with that, you can check out one of my many other videos about the fandom, like my original species video about protogens, manikids, or vernids. But I will also do another warning right before I get into the more adult topics, so you're not, surprised by it. So you'll get a second warning. And with that out of the way, let's start with Layer -1, pre-fandom terminology. This is layer -1 because this is furry terminology that is used by outsiders to the fandom. So it's not even on the berg because they have become non-furry parlance. Anthropomorphic. This is a long sciencey sounding way of saying furry. These are animals with behaviors typical of humans and usually have a human level intelligence, such as Disney's Robin Hood. Robin stands upright, is bipedal, talks, expresses emotion, thinks, and does human stuff like pay taxes. Well, not so much that last one. He kind of hates taxes. But it can also mean more animalistic creatures like Todd from The Fox and the Hound. He thinks for himself, talks like a human, and has sentience. He would be considered anthropomorphic as well. Furry. A furry is someone who is a fan of anthropomorphic characters and a participant in the furry community at large. We are an artistic and creative community that was built around the appreciation of anthropomorphism and have since really become our own unique space with many customs, etiquette, unwritten rules, and more. We are a culture. Furries may choose to express themselves through fursuits, which are optional, but many express themselves through a rehash of their personal identity called a fursona. More on those later. Furry community, aka the fandom, the extended furry everything, the culture, the online spaces, the cons, and more are all part of this larger furry community. Kimono. This is usually discovered by Western furries much later into their time in the community, but in Japan, this is a genre, art form, and medium. So I'm putting it up here where it's more common knowledge. Kimono is furry, essentially. It covers art, manga, and anime that stars furry characters. Anime like Beastars stars kimono characters. Kimono also refers to a general style and is a popular style of fursuit that is on the rise here as well. Kimono Mimi, or Nico Mimi. You probably learned about Nico before even becoming a furry. Nico are humanoids with animal characteristics, specifically Nico are cat ones. Imagine a human with cat ears and a tail and acts like a cat, licking themselves and going, "Nya." I'm never doing that again, good lord. Oh, that's my first take. I'm never doing that again. I don't care if it wasn't good. I'm not doing another take. That's essentially a Nico. Kimono Mimi is more encompassing and covers non-feline Nico style characters. Many VTubers use this style, such as Korone, who would be a Kimono Mimi dog, or Inu Mimi, or Inu Musume, VTuber. VTubers are virtual YouTubers, but also covers V-streamers, which are virtual streamers. This term originated outside of the furry fandom, but many furry YouTubers have been doing it for a long time, using stills, which is now called PNG tubing. VTubers usually use a 3D model or a model animated in live 2D. Some people say I'm one, but no, this is just how I look. VTubing for furries is a sort of digital fursuit. Bronies. Bronies are a furry adjacent community. They're male fans of the cartoon called My Little Pony, and the female ones are usually called Pegasisters, but collectively they are bronies or MLP fans. The MLP fandom was considered furry before the bronies joined with the release of Friendship is Magic, and tried to distance their community from the furry community, not knowing people with pony OCs were considered furry before they even joined. OC. This means original character. Original characters are characters one makes up and designs. Some may be based off of a TV show, book, or any other media and are a character made to be as a fan-made character in that universe. Fans of Warrior Cats typically make lots of OCs, but an OC can be any character you make up that is personal to you. Layer 0. Common furry knowledge. This layer is your basic entry-level furry stuff. You probably knew this before even watching the video. Fursona. A fursona is your furry persona, an alter ego or an alternative version of yourself that is a furry character. A furry character can be just you as a dog furry, or it could be the ideal version of yourself. Many trans furries will have fursonas that are a sort of their transition goals, or how they view their ideal self, but some are just them but furry too. My fursona is a chimera. One may have multiple personas throughout their life, or additional ones they call OCs, or original characters. I've made a new fursona once a year for the past decade, so I have a lot of X-fursonas. Sona. Shorthand for fursona. Fursuit. A fursuit is a sort of late-game item in the furry fandom, the way one strives for power armor in Fallout. One may want a fursuit, but not be able to afford it as it costs upwards of $4,000, or many just don't want one at all. But a fursuit is like furry power armor. It's made of foam and fur to protect us from would-be assailants. The only downside, aside from the price, is that they get very hot, so many install fans inside the helmets or wear an ice pack vest in order to stay cool. A fursuit is typically designed based on a person's fursona, but sometimes a design on a fursona is too complicated to be replicated in a fursuit, and the suit may have dialed-back color schemes or may be a completely different character than their fursona. Typically, they are worn to conventions and meetups, and many are hand-sewn and are just labors of love by their creators or bought from a skilled maker. Fursuit maker. Someone who designs and sells fursuits. This is the person you go to in order to buy a fursuit. Fursuiting. The act of wearing a fursuit. For example, an event may be a fursuiting event. Cons. This is shorthand for conventions. There are large gatherings where many furries come together and hang out with friends and go to panels. These are typically hosted at convention centers. Furries usually work with the city and hotels in order to make this as fun a time as possible. Many cons are seen negatively, but more are seen as a great thing. Many host charity events. MFF, Midwest Fur Fest, alone has raised over $500,000 for various charities, and the news and the city usually get excited when MFF comes to town.
What is a furry? Well, furries are fans of anthropomorphic characters. Those are animals with human characteristics. And like any fan group, they have conventions. The biggest one in the world is here in Pittsburgh. It's called Anthrocon.
They're huge tourist attractions and do wonders for local businesses and bring in lots of tax revenue for the city. So overall, a convention is just a general good for most communities. Fur meets. These are like mini conventions. A group of people will host a small hangout of about 30 or less furries, and they do fun stuff together like mini golf, blacklight bowling, and go to zoos. Fur meets are also a great charity opportunity and raise money for zoos and animal shelters. SFW. SFW is an acronym meaning Safe for Work. This refers to works of art or media that is considered safe or okay to view in public settings. For example, this art is SFW. NSFW is the acronym meaning the opposite of SFW. This means not safe for work. These are art or other works that are not safe or okay for viewing in public settings. These works are typically depictions of nudity, but can be violent or shocking in nature. So if they have their hog out, it's NSFW. Suggestive. This is somewhere between SFW and NSFW. This is more of a judgment call. Artistic nudity like Venus on a half shell may be suggestive because many don't consider breasts sexual. But suggestive may also be cropped NSFW, blurred or censored nudity, just a butt, or suggestive poses. To be safe, you should still use an NSFW or spoiler tag. Cropped NSFW. For some, this is the peak of comedy. Cropped NSFW is just NSFW pictures cut in a way that removes the sexual context of the image. These are usually accompanied with something like, when you stub your toe. Kigurumi, also known as Kigu, is big pajamas, typically with a hood stylized to look like an animal. There are custom makers, and it's cheaper than a fursuit, so some go to cons in kigurumis. Partial. This refers to partial fursuits. These are typically just the head, paws, and tails, without the actual suit part of the fursuit. These are very common fursuits as they're a little more affordable, usually costing half as much or a third as much of a full fursuit. They're also not as hot temperature-wise, and you can wear just your usual regular clothes. Layer 1. Art stuff. The furry community is a very artistic and creatively driven community, and for many, becoming a furry is their first exposure to such a style of community. So this terminology is usually learned after being a furry, but not much time after identifying as one. Art theft. One of the many cardinal sins of the fandom, art theft is taking someone else's art and claiming it as your own, typically as a profile picture because you don't have art of your own persona yet. Typically, this is perpetrated by young furries new to the fandom and haven't learned furry etiquette yet. It's okay to make mistakes, but keep in mind these characters are very personal to their owners, and some are effectively just them. Wouldn't you find it weird to go on the internet and some person you've never met has a picture of you as their profile picture and claim to be you? That'd be a little weird, right? It's kind of the same thing with stealing someone else's art. What I suggest is for now, you can Google the animal you want your persona to be and use a picture of the real animal until you get your own art. You can also Google free to use or F2U bases. These are like coloring book pages. Follow the instructions on them and you could use one of them as your profile picture. FA. This is short for Fur Affinity, an art site used by many of the fandom's creators. It has a bit of a troubled past and lots don't like to use it and use Twitter instead. Furry Amino. Furry Amino is a phone app that is a community hub for the furry fandom. It's primarily used by young furries who are just learning about the fandom. Original species. These are species of animals made up by creative types. You might be familiar with Protogen, Dutch Angel Dragons, and Synths. But there are many, many more out there, and if you want to learn about them, then you should subscribe to me because I actually make tons of videos about original species. Open species. These are original species that anyone can make characters of or personas of. Closed species. These are the opposite and are very restrictive. These are usually specific to a community and are hard or expensive to get. An example would be Chimerion. There isn't really anything stopping you from making one as your persona, but why be like that when there are millions of animals out there that are free and don't come with the baggage or drama? Regulated species. These are in between open and closed. They're open, but they have rules and design rules you need to follow. This is done to ensure that the species stays unique and keeps its original appearance. Protogen are a really good example of this. Fuzzball. An affectionate term for another furry, usually used in a friendly manner. Digital art. Art that is made using a computer or tablet. Traditional art. Art made with traditional artistic mediums like paint, pastels, canvases, or Crayola crayons. Hybrid. Refers to a character that is two or more species mixed together, like a persona that's part dog and part cat. Pixel art. It's art made at a low resolution, typically 100 by 100 or 300 by 300. It's easier just to show you it. It's, this. Sketch. A proof of concept piece of art. This comes before the hard lines that are colored in. An artist will show this to customers before continuing, usually in order to confirm the pose and some details. Usually has a scratchy appearance and is light in color, and typically looks like it was drawn with a pencil. Line art. The step after sketching. This is more defined lines and the sketch is cleaned away. Colored sketch. Sketch that is colored in. Colored line art. Line art that has been colored in that usually isn't shaded. Artists will sometimes share this step with the buyer in order to confirm colors and patterns before finishing the image. Shaded. Colored or not colored art that is shaded to show depth and lighting. Many skip on buying this because most art looks fine without it, but my artist friends say they'll sometimes toss this in just to make the picture look nicer or to hide mistakes. Painting. This usually refers to digital paintings and are beautifully and masterfully detailed. They look like traditional paintings. Layer 2. More art terms. There are a lot of these. The furry fandom has pioneered many different forms of art and ways to make money to pay your bills with it. Adopt. These are characters that artists design with the intent to sell them. Some can be very unique, wholly original pieces, or part of a much larger batch of many using the same line art with changes in the patterns and colors. These are common in original species circles and for some are the only way they can join the closed species community. Closed species tend to run on the expensive side, but most adopts, the price usually depends on whether it's a batch or an original. YCH. This is shorthand for your character here. This is a piece of art that is made with the intent to sell to someone who wants their character in that position or style. It's a sort of proof of concept, or a way for an artist to monetize a cool design that was trapped in their head. Some are made so that many people can buy it, and that's typical of holiday ones, but some artists sell the YCH to only one person. These are great if you want thematic art, but can't think of what you want or any poses yourself. Badge. This is usually a piece of traditional art that is a bit of the character, usually from the chest up with the character's name on it. It's laminated and worn on a lanyard to conventions as a way to sort of say, this is me, this is who I am. Fursuiters and non-fursuiters get them. Commission. The act of hiring a person to make art for you. Requests. Like a commission, but the artist usually does requests to draw for practice and can be a persona or fan art of characters. Requests are free, in my experience. Invoice. These are usually issued through PayPal. When you commission someone, they may send an invoice, which is a sort of receipt saying you owe money for this. PFP. Profile picture. The thing that shows your face on social media. Headshot. Commission term meaning art of a character from the neck up. These are usually used for profile pictures. Bust. Art of the character from the chest up. This is to show off the booba. Waist up. Like bust, but waist up. Thigh up. Same as waist up, but thighs. Full body. Art of the full body. Usually you use these terms to specify how much of your character you want drawn when commissioning an artist. Artists will typically have different prices based off of how much of the body is shown. Digitigrade. These are the lower limbs typical of a dog. When getting art of a character who hasn't been drawn, an artist will ask you if you want digitigrade or plantigrade. Plantigrade, they're like normal human legs. Ref sheet. This is a piece of art showing the front and back of a character. This is a first piece of art that many people get. A reference sheet is for people who draw your character in the future that need to use the picture as a reference to make sure the new piece they draw has all the patterns and colors of your actual character. Tar. Think centaur, but the bottom half is the normal animal's body and the top half is the anthro body type. Trade. This is when two artists will make art for each other instead of commissioning each other. Trades can be any goods though. For example, I've traded ad space on some of my videos for art. Feral. Think of Todd from Fox and the Hound. A regular animal capable of thought and speech. More info on layer 5. Model or sculpture. A sculpture is a 3D image usually made in Blender and usually isn't animated or animated very little. Models are the same, but are fully animated with the intent to work with tracking for games like VR Chat or VC Face, a motion capture tool used for 3D VTubing. Layer 3. Rarer terms. Okay, we are out of art-specific stuff and getting back more to general fandom stuff. Toonie, typically in reference to fursuit design. This means a fursuit head with a more cartoonish appearance. Realistic. Typically in reference to fursuit design, it means a fursuit head that is designed to look more like a realistic animal, like if furries were real. Roleplay. The act of two people pretending to be characters and engaging in scenarios between said characters. If you've ever played Dungeons & Dragons, it's like that. Gray muzzle. A furry who is a member of the aging community. This term gets its namesake from the graying of your hair like the graying of an old wolf's muzzle. Duke. The noise a ferret makes. Boop is when you knock someone off the map with Lucio's alt-fire or Brigida's whiplash. Also means to poke an animal's nose. It's also the onomatopoeia, meaning it's the word for the sound it makes. So you touch their nose and it go boop. Banui. The cutesy and silly misspelling a bunny. Boo woo. This is an old furry emoji before emojis existed. The U's are supposed to be the shape your eyes make, and the W is the mouth. This usually means bashful or just being cutesy. It's seen as cringe in and out of the fandom, but cringe is stupid, so do it if you want anyway. Oh whoa is another furry emote meaning shock or surprise, or horny in a good way. Typically used in conjunction with what's this? Yes, I'm playing the ooh woo song again. I don't care if you saw it in the last Iceberg.
Right. Extra noses pounces on you, ooh, you're so warm. Couldn't help but notice your bones from across the floor. Noses your nicky wakey till day hee hee.
Glump. A hug that is more akin to a tackle. I remember this being used more in the lol so random era. Scaly, a furry of a reptilian species like a lizard or dragon. Most won't have an issue with you just calling them furries too. Bale, cutesy for bear. Poss, shorthand for possum. Puppo or doggo, cutesy and mimi for dogs. Avian, like furry, but this one is for the birds. Huggies or huggles, when two people wrap their arms around each other as an expression of hello or love, rarely used for war. It's common for furries to hug each other, but you should ask strangers first. Nom, to bite or chew, used affectionately, silly, or just to eat. Scritches, scratching behind the ears. Shep, shorthand for German shepherds. Snep, short for snow leopards. Pobs, another word for paws. Toe beans. These are soft padding found on the underside of the feet of predator species like cats. Maw means mouth. Harness. These are those X-shaped straps some fursuiters wear. Some fursuits have very restrictive sights, so another person will use the harness to help them around. Handler. These are a person or persons who help guide their fursuiting friend around. They're very helpful to first-time fursuiters or people with suits with bad vision. They work like a goalie. They keep you away from dangerous stuff, and they keep unwanted people away as well as help ensure boundaries are respected. For example, an excited person may want to run up and hug you. The handler will stop them and get your attention so you're not caught off guard or accidentally hurt. Another kind of handler is a wrangler. They get large groups into position for photos. Baby fur, a furry who has a baby fursona. PCD, post-con depression. This is the depressive state some furries sink into after a con is over. It's caused by the isolation from friends, having to go back into the closet as many of us are queer, going back to our jobs, and being forced to go back to our everyday lives, which usually suck. Poodling, showing skin while fursuiting. It's named this way because the way a person grooms a poodle, where sections are poofy and others are shaved. Ruining the magic. The act of a fursuiter breaking the illusion that they are a furry by taking off parts of their fursuit or otherwise revealing they are actually a human. It's a very furry thing to complain about, and I definitely eye roll when I hear someone say it. Con crud. Sicknesses or illnesses caused by lots of people being in one place like a con. Typically, a cold that you bring back with you from the con. Make sure to wash your hands or use alcohol-based sanitizers. Don't touch your mouth, eyes, or nose without washing first. Just use your recently acquired pandemic habits. Con funk means convention funk, and that's dirt and smells you get from conventions. If you're fursuiting and walking around all day, you're going to sweat and stink. So up your wash game. Otherkin. Otherkin are a subculture of people who identify as not entirely human. It's not uncommon to encounter people like this within the fandom. Therians are individuals who believe they are not completely human and instead identify as a species of non-human animal. Layer 4, adult content territory. Whoa there, sport. I know you're eager to learn, but maybe you should rethink continuing. From here on out, I'll be talking about adult content, so maybe sit this one out if you're uncomfortable with this stuff. Femboys. These are feminine males who like to wear feminine clothes and act in feminine ways. Their standard issue uniform is thigh highs, and those thigh highs for your arms, the sleeve thing. Fat fur. Fat furs are people who are more interested in fat furries. These can be people into gaining, the kink about gaining weight, feeding, the kink of helping someone to get fatter, or just people who have a bigger appreciation of bigger furries. Vor. A kink that exists in and outside of the fandom, but is most common within it. It's when a character swallows another, but can be done with any orifice. If there is a hole, it can consume, and that's usually called that body part plus vor. It's joked about a lot. Inflation. This may one day pass up vor as the most joked about fandom kink. It's the act of filling a character with air, liquid, goo, or objects until they swell up like a balloon. Pawing, or pawing off, means to pleasure yourself or show off your handiwork. ERP, erotic roleplay. It's roleplay, but you might need a box of tissues. Macro, a character who is a kaiju-sized, furry, like Godzilla. Micro, the opposite, like a pixie-sized character. Bara, masculine male furs that are usually depicted as chubby or muscular. I have a whole video on that subject if you're interested. Its origins are in Japanese media, and it means content made by gay men for gay men. Yif. Yif is a furry word for NSFW acts or content that are sexual in nature. I don't really know anyone who uses it all that much, but every so often I'll see it and I'll get like whiplash. I might start using it just to get out of demonetization if that becomes an issue. But some people say they do still hear other people use it a lot. In the circles that I'm in, I don't hear people use it all that much. Mersuit, a fursuit designed for yiffing. Threading, a kink meaning goes in one end and comes out the other, usually done with tentacles. Pup hood / pup gear. These are BDSM gear used to engage in pup play, which is acting like a dog with the other partner role-playing as the owner. The hoods are sometimes used as stand-ins for fursuits at conventions, and of course there is discourse as to whether or not these are acceptable to wear at conventions. Pony play. Similar to pup play, but horses. These two didn't originate in the fandom, but have found a home in it. Inflatables. This can be innocent or NSFW, but inflatables are furries whose persona are inflatable creatures like pool toys. Plushie. This can be innocent or NSFW. Plushies are furries who are stuffed animals or plushophiles who want to engage in adult behavior with stuffed animals or fantasize themselves being the plushie receiving. Scat, a fetish involving feces. Bad Dragon. A company that makes silicone statues used for insertion or penetration. This can refer to the company itself or its products. Layer 5, the Deep Dark. And our final tier. Groomer. Not a furry word, but is used to refer to people who build trust with an underage person with the intent to abuse, manipulate, or exploit them. Baby fur. This is a person whose sona is a baby furry. This community is mostly nice and friendly, but there are members in it that draw NSFW content of these characters who are essentially making CP. Cub art. A childlike furry, usually younger than a teen who is depicted in art. This art can be innocent, but NSFW cub art does exist, and that's effectively the loli or shota art of furry art. It's also CP. Feral. Continue from its original layer. Ferals are animals who think like humans and are common of characters like warrior cats OCs, and are usually innocent. It's actually very common for furries to get art of an alt version of their sona that is feral. However, there is feral NSFW, which borders on zoo content. Some are cool with it, some consider it too close to real animals and view it as zoophilic content. Gore. A type of art or content of characters being depicted being gutted or ripped open. It's not restricted to furries, but there are artists who draw it, and you should know what it means so you don't accidentally click on it, I don't know, scar yourself. I don't know how often you watch horror movies. Candy gore. It's like gore, but it's more silly. The characters can be made out of candy or have candy spilling from the wounds instead of blood or guts. Might also be called sparkle gore, pastel gore, or flower gore. I actually had a Halloween shirt on sale that used sparkle gore. It can be really pretty. Zoophile. These are people who are sexually attracted to animals. Some are members of the fandom, and some merely use the fandom as a front to get away with these actions. These people should be outed and removed from the fandom as they are hurting animals, and the fandom does not endorse harming animals. Furries aren't zoophiles, but there is a very small amount of furries who are zoophiles. A survey from Fur Science said only 6% of furries were even interested remotely in zoophilia. Zoo sadist. A zoophile who gets off by inflicting wounds and pain on animals. These aren't really furry words, but when people talk negatively about furries, you're going to hear these words. An outdated derogatory term for furries, fell out of use for the most part when people became more accepting of queer people. Now when someone uses it unironically, it's easy to spot them for what they really are. A homophobe. The furry fandom is primarily queer, so this one really is just them telling on themselves. It's only down this far because it's based on a slur. Alright, so that's it. I definitely feel like I missed a few, so let me know if I missed any in the comments, and if there are enough, I'll make a version 2.0. Anyway, if you appreciate the video, I would appreciate a like. Before we go, I want to thank all of my patrons and YouTube members. Awesome superfans like you help me make awesome content like this. So thanks to Ceres, Kit Chimera, Ukulele Otter, Vaderson, Linky, Blonsk, Colorado Blue, and Romu. If you want to help like they do, or get early access to videos and cool things like emotes to use in the comments, you can by clicking the join button below the video or by joining my Patreon in the description below the video. Thank you everybody for watching, and to the subs, my herd, enjoy your grazing, and bye-bye.